Welcome back to the ninth episode of the Reappearance of Rachel Price. I'm very excited to be jumping back into this book. We've got a lot going on. This is one of the longest stretches of chapters that we have. So I'm a little nervous to see what goes on. Yeah, we're just gonna dive straight into it. Chapter 41. Grandpa Street. The road rough against her wheels, a grating that sounded like whispers, urging her on. No streetlights, only the silver of the moon, looming over the dark mountains. But it was enough. Belle could see a figure outside the house. She recognized the curve of Ash's shoulders, his awkward wave. He'd driven here in Ramsey's rental car. That was how he beat her, riding as fast as a wind. Belle gripped the brakes. She skidded and jumped off, ditching the bike on the grass outside. Hi, Ash said, another awkward wave, like the first hadn't counted. Belle moved closer until he was more than an outline, the camera cradled in the crook of his arm. I'm sorry, she said, chest tight wrapped around her heart. She hadn't lost it forever then. I didn't mean what I said. I was just trying. I was wrong. Ash's eyes hooked onto hers. He broke into a smile. Wow. Belle Price apologizing. I should have had the camera on for that one. No one will ever believe me. Belle exhaled, a laugh in there somewhere. She closed the gap between them, tiny punch to his arm. Thought so. Ash's breath was warm on her face, leaving the heat there. I'm sorry, too. I shouldn't have said that closer to home thing. I didn't mean your dad, but no. Belle cut him off. You were right. The answer is closer to home. It's not Philip Alves. My mom just admitted that herself. Said she couldn't tell me the truth, that she wouldn't do that to me. But I know how to find it, and I think the answer... She trailed off, trying to find the words, trying to find the strength to say them out loud. Belle? Ash said, voice soft, helping her cross the line. I think the answer leads back to my dad, somehow. She paused. I'm not sure he is who I thought he was. Guess it took me a lot longer than everyone else to see it. Ash chewed his lip and glanced over at the house. Why are we here then? This is where the answer is. What Rachel was looking for. Something that would lead us to the truth. That's why she wanted to get it. She doesn't want anyone finding the truth. But we don't know I know what she was looking for. Belle spoke across him, looking at the dark house. One of the 3 houses she called home. Part of her history. Part of the Price family. But the houses had kept secrets from her, too. Rachel didn't just happen to spot our cameras as she walked past. It was too well hidden for that. She found it because we'd hidden it exactly where she was heading. She was going for the bookshelves, Ash. Ash's eyes narrowed, like that made perfect sense, and none at all. It's a book, Belle tried to explain. All the pieces she'd now put together, the feeling in her gut holding them there. The Memory Thief. My grandpa used to read it to me. Always told me it was a very special book. That's what he said, very special. I caught Rachel in my room a few days after she returned, looking through my copy of the book. Said it was one of her favorites, but it was published after she went missing. Asked me something too. I didn't realize what it meant at the time. She asked if someone had given me that copy. She meant Grandpa, I'm sure of it. And today for his birthday, Rachel gave him a new copy, like it was a message for him, even if he can't remember. That's why she wanted Grandpa and Jordan out of the house, why she went straight for the bookshelf. She wanted that book, that specific copy of this book. Ash was nodding, with her now, holding those pieces together too. But why? Let's find out. Belle hurried past the steps, lifted the ceramic toad up by his cold head. You should turn the camera on. I think we're about to solve the mystery. Belle had waited long enough. Only her whole life. Are Jordan and your grandpa out? Ash hovered behind a beep as he pressed record. They're at my house. Belle scrabbled for the key, with Rachel. Up the steps, a finality to the sound, echoing in her chest. She unlocked the door and pushed it open. The wall of heat tried to push her back, drawing out her eyes and her ragged throat. Belle fought through, carving a path, the heat folding her in, pulling Ash in after her. He closed the front door and Belle switched on a light, glancing back, eyeing the camera. No longer recording to catch Rachel. Recording to hold on to the trash. To have the answer be a physical thing that no one could take away from her. Like memory had the day Rachel disappeared. An answer Belle must have seen but never held on to. A way back to that tiny girl who was too young to understand, too young to speak. Belle walked into the living room, the air staler in here, drier. A room that had seen a lot of living, decades and generations of Prices. Ash was right behind her, flicking on the light. You ready? He asked, both staring across the room, at the wooden bookshelf. Belle finally was. Her feet followed her eyes, stopping, standing before the chaotic shelves, books piled sideways and up. So many books, no sense in their order. Belle's gaze ran backwards and forward, up and down, looking for that green spine she knew so well. Her heart kicked up, a sharp breath in. There it was, The Memory Thief, by Audrey Hart. Second shelf down, level with her eyes, just a few inches from where they'd hidden the camera. Belle reached for the book. One finger hooked onto the cover, a shiver passing from the book's spine up her own, creeping and old. She pulled and the book tilted, breaking ranks. She dragged it out, book sliding and falling to fill the space it left behind. Belle stared down at it in her hands, opening the front cover. She looked at the title page. Then chapter 1, the first line of the first page, about a man in a made-up world, cursed to never have his own memories, stealing other people's by cutting open their heads. Dark stuff, Ash read over her shoulder. Belle flicked through the first chapter and then the next, eyes darting across the double-page spread, so dried out she could almost hear them scratching as they stirred in her head. She reached page 100 and started skimming, then flicking, pages fanning a breeze up at her. A snatched look at every single one, right to the acknowledgments. Nothing, she said, confusion giving way to despair, emptying her out. I thought... What? I thought there'd be a message in here, or something. I don't know. It was too hot in here. Her despair caught fire, rolling into rage. She slammed the book shut, slapping both halves together. This was supposed to be it! Her mouth hung open, breathing out her last hope. Ash reached with his free hand, tucked her hair behind her ear. Let's look again, he said gently. Slowly. You might have missed something. Belle inhaled, pulling her last hope back. She opened the book again to chapter 1. Paused there for a long moment. Ash shifted closer, looking with his eyes and then through the camera. Belle didn't just look. She read, the voice in her head speaking the first sentence, dipping and pausing the way Grandpa once had. Wait, Ash said, spotting something in the viewfinder as he zoomed in. But Belle couldn't wait, because she'd noticed it too. Reading on to the second sentence, something tripping up her eyes. He had no past, only now and what was to come. That H! She stroked the tip of her finger to it. It's thicker than the other letters, like someone wrote over it. A slightly gray shine as Belle moved it under the light, like it was overlined with pencil, thickened its edges, making them stand out. But only very lightly, not drawing attention to itself. Very faint, Ash said. Very subtle, but yeah, looks like someone went over that. Unless it's a printing error. No, see? Belle pointed at the final line of the page. I don't remember you. The E in remember, she said, voice tripping over itself as her mind raced ahead, flicking to the next page. She squinted. There were more highlighted letters here too. Now she knew to look for them. Hiding inside the words, so faint you might not have seen them. Not if you didn't know this was a special book. But there is a message here. Belle moved, clutching the book to her chest, rushing over to the coffee table. She placed the book down, opened to that next double page. I need a pen and paper. She clicked her fingers, glancing around the room. Something white caught her eye. The sheet of paper on the TV stand. The one with the Wi-Fi password in Dad's oversized handwriting. That would do. Belle grabbed it, turned it over to the clean side. Pen, 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 she said, darting around. Jordan, where would you keep a mother frickin' pen? She found one in the kitchen, a pot besides the microwave. Sprinted back, crashing to her knees in front of the open book, Ash hovering over her with the camera, one hand on her shoulder to calm her, to let her know he was here. He was leaving. Ash was always leaving. But he was here now, and that meant something, too. H-E. Belle wrote those two letters at the top of the sheet, then turned her eyes back to the book. This might just be hell. She added that L. He gulped. And that P. Help. Help. Belle looked up at Ash, eyes wide and circling, heart beating so hard she thought he might hear, might catch it too. Keep going, he said, finding his voice again. Belle did. Finding M-Y-N-A on the other page. She flicked to the next double page, finger up and down, hunting for the highlighted letters. M-E-I-S-R-A-C. Turned to the next, the pen trying to keep up with her eyes. H-E-L-P-R-I-C-E. Help. My name is Rachel Price. Ash read aloud, sorting the jumbled letters into words. Belle's skin flashed cold against all sense, throat constricting, squeezing her out-of-place heart. A message from Rachel. and it wasn't done yet. Belle turned to chapter 2. He couldn't see over the hill. IAMB. Turning the pages, mind emptying out, focusing only on the letters. A message from the past, from her mom. One she didn't want Belle to find. Next page and the next. Rows of letters building up. Nonsensical, shifting under her gaze like they were slipping down the paper. More highlighted letters and more. Her eyes attuned to them by now. All the way to page 42. There was nothing after that. Belle checked. The book was clean. No more pencil marks. She wrote down that final E, hidden inside wept, and breathed again, blinking until her mind returned to her. Ash's eyes were narrowed, scanning the lines of scattered letters, but Belle had to be the one to read it first. She picked up the pen again, placing the tip against the page, below the last row, and she began sorting through the letters, splitting and grouping them until they made words, rewriting the full message below. Help. My name is Rachel Price. I am being kept by Patrick Price in a red truck on Price Logging Yard. Call police. That is the end of chapter 41. Hold on. Gina, welcome in. Oh my gosh, you could not have picked a... Wait, so you're telling me... Papa? Hold on. I need to close the door because Matt's working and I'm about to yell. Hold on. What do you mean it's Papa? Why the frick? What did Rachel do to Papa? Or did Papa just not like Rachel? Why? Why would he do that? I mean, so do we think now that, like, the business maybe went under on purpose and he wanted, like, the land? Like, I don't understand. Why would he do this? And I'm scared we're never ever gonna get the answer because... Oh, he held her for ransom? It's entirely possible that because, I mean, Rachel's family is wealthy as frick, right? Is it entirely possible that he was hoping to get money from it? And, you know, he wasn't trying to, like, reveal himself as the capturer, obviously. But, like, because this kind of goes back to the fact where Rachel's mom, like, is it possible that Rachel's mom, like, you know, clearly she didn't care about Belle enough to get her from this man who she thought killed her daughter? Like, I don't understand if it would line up that she doesn't really care about her daughter enough. See, my part in it is, like, got dementia and then he forgot her. I don't understand why. Because, like, Gina, remember, he also had a stroke. He had a stroke and then he had the dementia. So it's entirely possible that maybe maybe Papa told the dad, and Dad was probably like, hey, that's not right. And he was like, well, too bad. And then he was like, blah, 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 stroke. And then so he just had to cover for his dad because he was like, how, like, they already think I'm gonna take the blame, so I'm gonna take the blame either way. I don't understand. Like, wouldn't he rather just be like, because again, if Dad was taking care of her at this point, right? Why would he let her? What? Also, how did Papa get that book? How did she get that book from Papa and then manage to get that book back to the house? Like, was he bringing... Is that why he had so many books? Because he would bring them to her as entertainment? And so maybe there's multiple... Maybe she knew he always read them to her. It's entirely possible. I, I don't know. I I mean that is true. Like in the old video, like he's reading it to Belle, and they're like, "Isn't Jay too young for that book?" And he's like, she's fine. It's just a book." Cause Rachel was captured by that point. Cause she got captured. I'm just trying to think timeline. You know what I mean? Because Rachel disappeared when Belle was 2. Do you think that's what the money was for? Do you think? Do you think that? Do you? I'm so sorry. I'm making like no sense. Do you think Papa was like, Rachel, you come from a wealthy family, loan me money? And she was like, no. And he was like, you better. And she was like, you're scaring me. And that's why she went to teach her friend. Do we think that she wasn't scared of her brother-in-law? She was scared of her father-in-law. To me, it just doesn't make sense, because at this point as well, like, do all the men in this family know? You know what I mean? Like, did the dad leave because he knows that Rachel might say the truth? Does Rachel not want to tell Belle because, like, that's her grandfather and her father? Like, is literally Belle's entire family going to collapse? You know what I mean? Like, her uncle knew about it, her dad knew about it. You know, she's gonna be like, oh, the only people who actually care about me aren't actually, like, you know? I don't really trust Uncle Jeff. Because genuinely, why does he have a friend on the dark web? You don't just meet someone on the dark web and are good friends with them, you know? I feel like you have to have enough trust with this person for them to tell you that they're on the dark web. But that's just me. I don't know. Let's keep reading. Chapter 42. The pen dropped from Belle's hand, a ghost line meandering down the page. Oh my god, Ash whispered somewhere above her. Somewhere far above her, because she was falling. Following her heart off that cliff inside. It was Grandpa. Someone did take Rachel. She hadn't lied about that part. But it wasn't a stranger. Grandpa was the man. He took Rachel from the car on that frozen February evening 16 years ago, leaving Belle behind, doors closed, heaters on, so his only granddaughter wouldn't freeze in the back seat as he disappeared her mom, his daughter-in-law. A lump lodged in her throat, jagged and bitter. It was Grandpa. Her gaze darted over his name in her handwriting, the letters sharpening, growing thorns to pick at her eyes. Patrick Price. Pat. Grandpa. Papa. She gasped, but it didn't make past the lump in her throat. Richard Tripp had told the police that Belle seemed fine when he'd found her, and that she was babbling made-up words, the same nonsense sound over and over again. Now Belle wondered. Had she been trying to tell him? Those sounds she'd made, had they really been Papa? Papa? I'm sorry, Belle. Ash ran one hand up her back against the shiver. One tear made it out of her dried-out eyes, falling to the page to Rachel's message, hidden all these years. Price Logging Yard. Ash read out, a question in the quiet lilt of his voice. Grandpa's yard. It went out of business way before I was born. Where is it? Here in Gorham. Frick! Belle clawed at her face, raking her fingers through her hair. She was in town. Rachel was being held right here. I know that red truck. There's a huge junk pile of old sawing equipment and cars and trucks. We used to go to that yard sometimes, when it snowed. There's a good hill there, good for sledding. Grandpa used to yell at me and Carter when we got too close to the old trucks. Said it wasn't safe, that we had to keep far away from it. Her breath juddered. Not because it wasn't safe, it's because he was keeping Rachel there. She was right there, so close to us, and I never knew. Ash pressed his eyes shut, like he didn't know what to say. No words could possibly fit in that awful space. Belle's memories rewriting around it. I never knew, Belle said again, a quiet echo reverberating in her hollowed-out head. She looked at the memory thief, lying there, splayed open. I read this book. This exact copy. It felt like a confession somehow. Grandpa must have been taking food to Rachel, gave her books to pass the time. This book. She stroked one finger against the edge of its pages. She had it in the red truck with her, and she hid a message inside it. I read this book and I never found it. Never saw the marks. Touching the same book, maybe only weeks or months after Rachel had. Her small fingers and her mom's invisible handprints. Rachel must have been so desperate, hoping someone would find this message. that Grandpa would give the book away, or someone else would read it and rescue her. She waited all those years for it. It could have been me. It should have been me. But I never saw it. I never knew. Ash still couldn't find the words. The Memory Thief. A book Rachel had pinned all her hopes on. A special book. Belle tore her eyes away, heading for the bookshelf again. Rachel was there a long time. Grandpa must have given her more than one book to read. Maybe there were more special books. Ash followed her with the camera as Belle picked out one at random, pulling it off the shelf. The Hunger Games. Belle flicked to chapter 1, hunting through the words. Here they were too. The faint pencil marks, picking out the letters. Help, all on the first page. The P in Prim's name. Belle turned to Ash, wide-eyed. Rachel's message. It's here too. Frick. Ash placed the camera on the coffee table, lens pointed at them to capture it all. He came to stand beside her, shoulders brushing hers, scanning all the books, spines, and sideways titles. He grabbed a paperback from the highest shelf, The Night Circus, and flipped it open, eyes glinting as they ran down the pages. Help. My name is Rach. He broke off, flicking through the next dozen pages. It's here too, the whole thing. Belle dropped the Hunger Games, grabbed 2 more books. She checked through them. Bring up the bodies and behind closed doors. The message was in both. All the way to call police, ending on page 46 in one, 49 in the other. She dropped them at her feet, a crash and flutter of pages, and went on for 2 more. Ash had a pile in his arms now, looking through the one on top. This one, he said, sliding it off to the floor. This one, and the next and the next. The mounds were growing at their feet, tripping them as they reached for more books. Gone Girl and Station 11 and The Vanishing Half and The Guest List. They all had it. Help. My name is Rachel Price. Ash paused on the book in his hands, doubling back, finger on the page. This one's different. Help. My name is Rachel Price. We are being kept instead of I am being kept. What is it? Belle stepped over the growing mess of books, heel catching one, bending its spine. He held it up. An old book. The Green Mile by Stephen King. Belle stared down at it, found the 2 letters. We? You think my grandpa was keeping someone else in there too? I don't know, Ash said. It's the only one I found. The rest say I. Belle grabbed more books, searching for the highlighted letters, for any variation. The Midnight Library, A Little Life, 6 of Crows, and Game of Thrones. Some of these books are recent. Belle dropped Malibu Rising to the growing heap, peaks and valleys of sliding books, the shelves emptying before their eyes. Ash nodded, holding up a hardcover, eyes dancing around the copyright page. This was published last year. January 2023, it says. Belle reached for another book, but stopped herself, retracting her fingers, losing them up her sleeve. What else was there to know? She was there the whole time, wasn't she? Belle said, missing half her voice, staring around at the mess, the devastation. A row of books fell over by themselves, jumping to their desks with the others. The crash brought Belle back. She held out her arm to stop Ash too, resting against his chest. She looked down at all of them, the answers to the mystery right here the entire time. I read a lot of these books, these exact copies. No one ever found her message. It should have been me. Maybe Rachel hoped it would be her own daughter. The Anna she imagined, who eventually found all the letters, who would be the one to save her, marking her message in a dozen books, maybe hundreds. 100 hopes, 100 chances. A bookshelf full of them, Grandpa hoarding them here, telling Belle they were special, but never why. Because her mom had read them first. I'm sorry, Belle whispered, to the books, to her mom. Why is this our favorite? Ash returned to the Memory Thief, picking up his camera. Maybe that was the first one. Belle joined him. It was out here the longest, her biggest hope. Frick, Ash said, softening the hardest word somehow. This is awful. Poor Rachel. The truth was awful, but this wasn't all of it. The answer was Grandpa. It was right here in Rachel's own words, in Belle's handwriting, but where did Dad fit into the story? There was only one way forward, the way that hurt more. Belle decided, knowing bone deep that the decision had already been made, the moment she'd read her mom's message. I have to go there, to the logging yard, the red truck. I have to see it for myself. I need to see what they did to her. Ash's eyes narrowed. They? My dad. It hurt just to say it. Why would she do something to him if he hadn't done something to her first? Philip's words, now her own. She turned away, hands empty, out of the living room. She didn't look back. Not at the half-empty shelves or the chaos below, the aftermath. Belle didn't need to see any more. Ash followed her with the camera out the front door. Outside was a different world. A silver glow around her fingers, a cold breeze up her spine, another shiver. Belle threw the key towards the ceramic toad, no time to go back and hide it under. Her heart and her head were on the same side, telling her she needed to go, that she was so close now. She glanced down at her bike, discarded on the grass. I can drive, Ash offered, reading her eyes in the dark. He started the engine, beams too bright, lighting up Grandpa's house, glaring off the glass like an accusation. There's 2 ways, Belle said. The yard's on the other side of the river. Quickest from here is the bridge at the mountain trailhead. We'll have to ditch the car and go the rest on foot. The bridge you could drive over was all the way on the other side of town. Neither way hurt less, but one would be faster. And Belle's heart didn't have the time for the other, a violent ache in the base of her throat. Turn right. Ash pulled out onto Main Street. Belle gripped the camera, watching the road in the viewfinder as Ash sped down it. They passed under a flickering streetlight, where the town thinned out, trees taking over. A rush of blood in her ears, or maybe it was the Androscoggin River, racing them to the right. It's coming up. The old railway bridge that flew over the road. Across the river, too, now used only by snowmobiles. Slow down. They passed under the hulking green metal bridge, standing on double concrete legs, making the darkness darker still for half a breath. Pull off here. Ash followed her voice, peeling right into the small gravel lot by the base of the bridge. The car rolled to a stop. Ash parking right in front of the mountain trail sign. Belle passed him the camera and jumped out, the rush in her ears becoming a roar. A sound inside her own head, or was it the river right there? The headlights switched off and Belle waited for Ash in the pitch black, the moon too weak to reach her. She pulled out her phone for the flashlight, a ghostly white glow on her feet. There were no lights here, and there would be no more the rest of the way to Price and Son's logging yard. Ash scrambled out of the car, fiddling with the camera's screen. It has night vision mode. Hold on. There we go. I can see now, he said, using the viewfinder as his eyes in the dark. Belle lit her way up the base of the ramp, her steps hollow and metallic as she followed it around, where the pedestrian walkway had been added, a lower level to the bridge, closer to the churn of water below. Okay? She checked with Ash, stepping out over the river. The metal clunk of their feet on the bridge, out of time as they hurried along, recreating the beat in Belle's chest. She flickered the light up from her feet, the trestle frame of the bridge caging them in, catching them. Frick! Ash stumbled behind her. Belle turned and he stumbled again, another frick. What? She hissed. Just, you look scary in the night vision. Your eyes are glowing green. Not the time. They reached the other side, Belle's feet speeding up as the metal ramp tilted her down to the ground. The river was behind them now, on the other side, the wilder side. Trees growing up around them. Belle raised her phone, branches and leaves dancing in the wind, throwing nightmare shadows along the path. How long from here? Ash asked, sticking close to her. 10 minutes if we walk fast. The yard is near the base of Deer Mountain. We'll follow the river for now. Belle kept the light on her feet, watching every step, the only thing keeping the darkness from swallowing them whole. This goes to an old power station over the reservoir. Are there bears? He said, turning his camera towards the thick covering of trees. Ash, it's New Hampshire. Fantastic. They crossed the small concrete bridge over the reservoir, another rush of dark water they couldn't see. This way now. The road curved left, taking them away from the river around the hulking shape of the mountain. The path was uneven, an old logging road, churned up by heavy wheels. Ash tripped and Belle offered her hand, keeping her glowing eyes to herself. We're here, she said eventually, lighting up the high metal fence that surrounded the yard, the huge clearing in the trees, cut into the forest. The printed, rusty sign telling them, trespassers keep out. Had that always been there, or did Grandpa only add it when he had something inside to hide? They trudged alongside the fence to the huge gates at the front, a larger sign here, old painted letters peeling away with time. Price and Son's logging yard. Looking through his viewfinder, Ash approached the gate, reaching out for the large padlock, a thick chain around the middle of railings, sealing them shut. He let the padlock swing back with a clang, echoing in the trees. How do we get in? There's a gap in the fence this way, Belle said, guiding him with her flashlight. They walked beyond the gate, to where the chain-link fence was broken, the bottom corner rolling away from its post. Belle hauled it up and ducked her head under, holding it for Ash. He used to get in our sheds this way, she said, making sure he was through. Another line crossed. A different world inside the fence than the one outside. This is where it happened. The place her mom had disappeared to for all that time. Ash followed her, the yard now covered in patches of grass, high and untamed. It was flat until it wasn't, sloping up towards the tree line. She and Carter would race up, dragging their sled behind, jumping on together, speeding down the fresh snow towards the fence and the river. Had Rachel been able to hear their screams? They hadn't heard hers. Come on, Belle said, not lighting her feet anymore, but the way ahead, towards the junk pile at the other end. It was about here. Right here. This invisible line, Grandpa would yell. That's far enough. Dangerous over there. Those saws could cut you. Those trucks could fall on you. Come back this way, Belle. Belle didn't go back that way. She pushed forward, waiting for the hulking dark shapes of the rusted cars, looking up for that frame used for hauling logs, tall as a giraffe, that she and Carter named Larry. From a distance, from behind that invisible line. Belle's foot nudged something. The light followed her eyes down. It was an old rusted saw blade, grass growing through the middle hole, teeth in a perfect circle. We'll have to find our way through, she said to Ash. The red truck is in the middle of it all. Belle pushed on, stopping when she hit a barrier. 2 cars, glass and tires gone, just the bones, pressed up nose to nose. She clambered over their hoods, the light disappearing against the metal, stood on top and helped Ash over. More obstacles, unseen things catching their clothes in the dark, holding on. A machine Belle didn't understand, interconnecting wheels and gears, too big to climb over so they went around. Part of a sawmill, a huge round blade growing out of the earth. Watch out, Ash warned her. Belle was lost, in this dark labyrinth of broken, rusted things, blades and saws and axes and metal skeletons that used to be machines. Can you see it? She asked him, checking back. Ash looked down at the viewfinder, panning the camera around. Not sure, he said, voice ragged and tired. I can see a truck that way. Don't know if it's red. Night vision doesn't really show colors. Belle held up the flashlight, the way he pointed the camera. She squinted, eyes following the beam. The red truck was right there, 30 feet away. Just a pile of tires beneath here and there, separating them. A semi-trailer with an old shipping container still attached to the bed of the abandoned truck. The head of the truck and its container both red, dull, and rusty. But it stood out against the cold grays and browns of everything else Belle's light found. The heart at the center of the metal beast. Ash gasped. He'd seen it too. The end of their journey. Belle walked toward it, stepping in and around the tires. Ash lagged behind. She turned. A question in her green, glowing eyes. Not sure I should be filming this, Ash stuttered. It's a crime scene. Doesn't feel right to show the place where Rachel... He trailed off. Wouldn't Ramsey want you to? For the film? Ash shook his head, eyes shrinking as Belle lit up his face. He stopped recording. A beep that echoed through the metal maze. He tucked the camera under his arm, pulling his phone out instead. Flicking on the flashlight. 2 lights were better than 1. Some things are more important than the film. He squeezed her hand. Ramsey would say the same. Ash, Belle began, but the words died before she breathed life to them, and her ears pricking a new sound, carried by the wind. A shout, muffled and faint. And again. Belle followed the sound with her eyes over to the red truck. There's someone in there! Ash's mouth dropped open. Another shout, dampened inside the metal container, almost in the shape of words. Is someone out there? Belle's heart doubled, kicking up into her throat. Frick, she said, retaking Ash's hand. Another low shout, one that sounded like help. What do we do? Ash asked, low and urgent. Belle knew, didn't need to say it. She had to keep going. The red truck had the answer she'd waited her entire life for. She dropped Ash's hands, wading through the tires, eyes up on the shipping container, the 4 metal bars and handles that sealed the door shut. A tire flat on its side, 2 piled up behind it, leading like stairs to the back of the container. Belle stepped up the first tire, up again, planting her feet against the thick rubber, resting her fingers on the cold metal. Another shout, louder now that she was right outside, touching it. She glanced back at Ash. He was just a pinprick of light, floating somewhere below. Somebody help! From inside. Belle took a breath, sucking in the darkness, filled herself with it. She reached for the first lock, hand tightening around the metal lever, stinging her skin. She pulled it to the left and it screeched, blocking out the screams inside as it unclipped from the door. She grabbed the other handle, flipping it, the bars releasing, unsealing the left door. It creaked, a crack of different darkness beyond. Belle held onto the handle, pulling the door toward her, swinging it open. She knew before she opened the door, before she waved the flashlight inside, before she saw him slumped against the far wall of the container. He held his hands out to block the light, covering his face. "Who is it?" he shouted, voice rough and raw. "It's me," Belle said, hiding behind her ball of light. "Rachel?" "It's me, Dad." He lowered his hands, eyes wide and haunted, staring blindedly at the dark shape of her. "Belle." That is chapter 42. Did she actually put him in there because he kept her in there? She... I'm so dead. I'm so... dude. What are you talking about? Dude, my neck hurts. I'm so stressed. This is not really the ending I thought we were going to be getting. I am not mad at it, though. I am not mad at it at all. Chapter 43. The light danced around the inside of the container, bringing it to life in flashes and shadows, moving as Belle did, stepping up into it. The walls and ceiling were lined with some kind of insulation, panels of corrugated foam. The floor, too, underneath rugs and blankets. There was a mattress in the far corner, pillows and more blankets. A camping toilet on the other side with a removable tank. An electric fan, cable wound around its base. A lamp, too, unplugged. Piles of ragged clothes and old towels. Giant vats of bottled water, some empty. A chaotic orbit of food, packets and cans and boxes. A lonely fork lying across an open can of sweet corn. Toiletries, wet wipes, and a box of batteries. And Dad, sitting against the far wall, between the toilet and the bed. There was a metal cuff around one of his ankles, a chain that snaked around him, disappearing through a small hole in the container wall, attached outside somewhere. "Belle!" He stood up, chain hissing as he did, unraveling, following him. He only got 2/3 of the way to her before it pulled tight, stopping him. A dark shape in his hand. He clicked it on. A flashlight, much brighter than hers. He rested it against a box of crackers, pointed at the ceiling, lighting up the room. "It is you," Dad said, voice steadier now, a shadow of dark stubble on his face that light couldn't touch. "Thank God it's you, Belle. Not her." Another shadow crossed his eyes. "Thought I heard voices. Talking. Is someone with you?" "It's Ash." She looked back for him. He was peering inside. A slow blink, like all this might disappear if he didn't look too long. "Who?" "Ash, from the film crew," Belle said louder, finding her voice. Dad's face shifted, a strange and unfamiliar look, lit from below. "Send him away, Belle. He needs to leave. Now." Belle glanced between the two of them, pinned in the middle. "You need to leave," Dad barked at Ash instead. "Go away, you hear? And do not call the police. No police. This is family business." Ash pointed at Belle. "I don't think I should leave you." "Go!" Dad pointed with a ragged finger, his wedding band missing from that hand. "Wait." Belle held up her own finger. "Ash, come with me." She stepped out of the container, down the steps made of old tires, Ash at her side. "Belle," he whispered, "what the frick? I'm not leaving you. I can do this on my own." She took his hand. "He's my dad. They're my parents. My family. I need the truth. All of it." Belle couldn't hide behind the film crew forever. "I can't leave you alone with him. What? I've been alone with him my whole life. Me and Dad, just the two of us. He's lied to me, Ash. I have to know what he did, what part he played. He owes me the truth, no one else. He won't talk with you here, but maybe he's finally ready to talk to me." Ash glanced up at the container, glowing in the middle of the metal maze. "Are you sure?" "Family first, huh?" she said. The trouble was knowing who deserved to be family at the end of it all. "I'll be okay. I need to do this. Can you find your way back to the car?" He slid his fingers between hers. "I'm not worried about me." "Don't call the police, Ash," Belle said, not because Dad told him. She needed the truth first, before she decided what to do with it. Her family. Her parents. Her decision. "Go back to the hotel. I'll call you when it's done, okay?" Ash didn't answer. He pulled her into him, arms tight, the camera trapped between them. She rested her head against his chest, listening to the tick of his heart. "Be safe," he whispered, lips grazing her ear. "I will." Dad was chained up. He couldn't do anything to her. Then another thought, overlapping that one. Dad wouldn't ever do anything to her anyways, right? Ash's finger trailed down her arm as he turned away, raising his phone, lighting up the hulking shapes of saws and rusted-out cars, picking his way through. Belle watched him disappear, the maze swallowing him. She inhaled the darkness. She was ready, counting herself down as she climbed inside. Inside the container across from her dad. He's gone. No police? Dad said, the question urgent enough to reach his eyes. He won't call the police. Good. He shifted, the chain singing as he did. God, am I glad to see you, kiddo. Don't know you found me, but you've got to get me out of here. Dad? Belle began, but he cut her off. She's crazy. Rachel? He said, spitting the name, eyes wide with panic. She locked me in here for no reason. Told me in the middle of the night she had something to show me. Brought me here into the truck. Before I knew what was happening, she locked this cuff around my ankle. How long has it been, kiddo? She's brought food and water a couple times, but won't tell me why she did this. Said that giving me any answers would be a kindness. You've got to help me. Rachel has the key to this. He gestured to his ankle, raw where the metal hugged the skin. Maybe you can find a handsaw in the junk? Help me, kiddo. Belle didn't move. Rachel did this? She said, using her ignorance as a mask. She knew a lot more than Dad expected her to. Yes, he said, voice pleading. Rachel's crazy. Something must have happened to her while she was gone, made her lose her mind. She locked me in here for no reason. Why would she do that to you, lock you in here if you didn't do something to her first? Dad's eyes snapped open. What are you talking about, kiddo? I've never done anything to her. It doesn't make sense. Belle chewed her lip. You know what else doesn't make sense? Dad stared at her. If Rachel is crazy, if she locked you up in here for no reason, why don't you want me to call the police? He took a step back, eyes spinning. Because, he held on to the word, giving himself more time. Because, you know how the police in Gorham are. Dave Winters would probably find some way of making this my fault and arrest me again. Maybe he should. What are you talking about, kiddo? He said, that last word sharp enough to cut her. Come on, you need to look for a way to get me out of this cuff. Force it open, cut the chain, go look for something. Now. No, Belle said, wincing at the look on his face. She'd never said no to him like that before. She always relented. Anything to keep him happy. To keep him from leaving because everyone left, eventually. Except, maybe that was never true to begin with. No, Dad. I'm sorry, but I need to know why Rachel put you here. His mouth gaped open and shut, shifting the shadows on the ceiling. I don't know, kiddo. That's the honest truth. She must have lost her mind when she was gone because she wasn't gone, Dad. Rachel was never gone. She was right here, in this red truck in this container, chained by the ankle. This is where she was all those years. Right here. Dad looked around like he was seeing it all for the first time. Belle couldn't trust his eyes. Not anymore. And I know who put her here. Belle hardened her gaze. Dad shook his head, the chain rattling behind. Why are you looking at me like that? It wasn't me. I had nothing to do with this. He lied too easily, rolling off the tongue. Maybe because he'd been practicing all her life. It was Grandpa. Belle studied him, for any twitch of the truth. Grandpa is the one who took Rachel. He kept her here, on his yard, in this container. Brought her food and water, brought her books to read to pass the years. All this time she was right here. She breathed out some of that darkness. You knew. No! His voice cracked, eyes pulling wider, new folds in his skin. I didn't know. I swear to you, kiddo, you have to believe me. I always believed you, Belle said, hers trying to crack too. She built a new wall over it. You were innocent. You were the only person who really cared about me, who would never leave. I did believe you. I defended you, told everyone they were wrong about you. Because you had an alibi. You couldn't have had anything to do with Rachel's disappearance, right? Yes, that's right. Please, you have to get me out of here. And it was almost a good alibi, wasn't it? Belle kept going, ignoring the plea in his eyes. Almost worked. You cut your hand at work at exactly 2 o'clock. Because that's the time you'd agree with Grandpa, when he would abduct Rachel. A bad cut, needed stitches. Meaning you'd be at the hospital, on the security cameras there. A solid alibi for the next few hours so they'd never suspect you. Dad was shaking his head, blinking. Only Grandpa didn't take her at 2 o'clock, did he? He was late, because Rachel went to the mall in Berlin. Grandpa couldn't intercept until Rachel got to that road where me and the car were found. He didn't take her until 6 o'clock, right at the tail end of your good alibi. So it wasn't good anymore, was it? Left just enough time, a few spare minutes for there to be some doubt, and the police jumped on it. Belle's hand dropped to her side, trigger finger ready. You never planned to be arrested, but you were because Grandpa was late. Belle, listen to me. No, you listen. Someone overheard you, Dad, talking to Grandpa. A twitch by his mouth. Too late for him to hide it. He wanted to ask who, but he couldn't do that, and they both knew it. You planned it all with Grandpa. Rachel's disappearance. You knew she was here. No, he shouted, hands trembling as he held them up. I didn't. I didn't know she was here. His eyes widened, slipping off her face, mouth dropping open. Couldn't even look at her as he lied. Yes, he didn't. A voice said behind Belle, a voice so familiar it almost sounded like her own. Chapter 44. Belle blinked, and Rachel appeared from the darkness behind, up into the container. Not looking at Charlie, eyes only for Belle. Hand twitching at her side like she wanted to reach for her. He didn't, she said again. Actually telling the truth for once. Belle angled her shoulders, not facing her dad or her mom, halfway between. How did you know I was here? She asked. Waited 20 minutes and you didn't come home, Rachel answered. I drove over to your grandpa's to look for you, saw the books all over the floor. I saw you found my message. I knew you'd come here to the red truck. I'm sorry. She dropped her eyes, only for a second. I didn't want you to find out like that. Find out at all. This is your family, the people that raised you. I saw how much you loved them, and as much as that hurt me, I didn't want to hurt you. I never wanted you to know. It was too late for that. What do you mean he's telling the truth? Belle glanced back at Charlie. He didn't know you were here? Rachel didn't look at him, spoke about him, spoke around him. That's true. He didn't know I was here the whole time in his truck. He didn't know because he thought I was dead. Now she looked at him, eyes full of fire. The chains rattled as Charlie stepped back, but Rachel wasn't done. He thought I was dead, because that's what he told Pat to do. That was the plan. You had the rest of it right, Belle. But your grandpa wasn't supposed to take me at 2 o'clock that day. He was supposed to kill me. Dad made a sound in his throat, low and guttural. Surprised, Charlie? Rachel threw the words at him, deadly like her eyes. Must have been a big surprise when you found me in your kitchen 3 weeks ago, after being sure I was dead for 16 years, huh? Everyone else assumed I was dead, but you were the only one who was sure. She sniffled. A laugh buried there somewhere, deep below. The look on your face. I thought you'd have a heart attack. Kinda hoped you would. I don't know what you're talking about, Charlie croaked. Oh, that's okay, Rachel clicked her tongue. Because I do know everything. More than you, in fact. Pat told me everything. Explained it all, so I see that it wasn't his fault. That, really, by keeping me here, he was saving me. He was so desperate to believe that. Your dad. So desperate for me to believe it too. That by not killing me, by keeping me here instead, he'd saved me from you. He told Grandpa to kill her? Belle turned to her dad, almost didn't recognize him. Why? There were too many whys. Why would Grandpa agree to that? Rachel looked between the two of them, eyes hardening one way, glittering the other. You going to tell her, Charlie? Dad darted forward, a crash as he reached the end of his chain. He winced, clutching his chest. None of this is true, Belle. She's manipulating you. Right, I'll tell her then. Stop talking, Rachel, he screamed, face reddening, a shadow monster writhing on the ceiling above him. Don't listen to her, Belle. Belle flickered between her parents, left and right, Mom and Dad. She wants the truth, Charlie. She deserves it. And you're never going to give it to her. Rachel turned to Belle, eyes soft, teeth away. Your grandpa agreed to the plan, at least as far as your dad knew, because Charlie blackmailed him. With what? Belle asked. Another price secret. What a family, huh? Rachel said, mouth in a grim line. When your dad was a teenager, one night he heard his parents arguing. The night his mom died. He got out of bed just in time to see Pat shove his mom. Maria fell down the stairs, a broken neck, catastrophic head injuries. The coroner reported it as an accident, that she tripped and fell because it was dark. That's the story Pat told him. But Charlie knew it wasn't an accident, that she was pushed. His dad killed his mom, whether he meant to or not. He never told anyone. Not Pat, not Jeff. Kept it to himself for years. Decades, until he saw an opportunity to use it. You probably thought wife killing ran in the family, huh, Charlie? She spat in his direction, back to Belle. Charlie told Pat that if he didn't agree to kill me, he would go to the police and tell them what he saw that night. That he would take it all the way, testify against his dad. That he could make Jeff believe he'd seen it too. And how is your grandpa going to say both of them were lying? That's why Pat agreed to it. Cowards, all of them. Dad's eyes narrowed on the back of Rachel's head, taking aim. Pat told me, Rachel said, unaware, that if he didn't agree to the plan, didn't take me. He was scared Charlie would eventually kill me himself, so he was saving me from that. But Charlie had to believe I was dead. And he did. The chain clattered as Dad started pacing. Charlie thanked him after. Can you believe that? Said he didn't want to know any of the details, how he'd done it. where my body was, just that it was done. He wanted plausible deniability. Pat always said that if Charlie ever showed remorse, if he regretted it, Pat would reveal what he'd really done, that I was still alive. That they'd find a way to bring me back home. Charlie never mentioned it to him once. He thought he'd had me killed, and he never had any doubts about what they did, never regretted it. Dad burst into laughter, hitching and hollow. What are you gonna do, Rachel? Belle is never going to believe you. She doesn't even know you. Belle, look at me, kiddo. She did, but only for a second. His eyes red and wild, stalactites of spit hanging from his teeth. She turned back to Rachel, her face wounded but quiet. Why would he want to kill you? Belle asked, looking at both sides of her parents, head spinning, because she couldn't see both at the same time. Rachel sighed. I'd known for a while that Charlie was going to kill me. It wasn't just when Pat took me. I knew for weeks, months. Why? You know your dad, she said, not unkindly. Maybe better than I do. You see how it works. How everything orbits around him, how he's always right. Controls everyone in the family, even if they don't know it. You notice how everyone says sorry to him, but he never says it back, because he's never wrong. He thought he could control me too. I was too young when I married him, naive, and he was so much older. So we had to be right about everything, but being your mom changed me, and I started to see how he really was. I think he saw me pulling away from him, so he tried to pull me back. For months he tried to make me think I'd lost my mind, so I'd need him, so I'd never leave. Rachel pressed her eyes together. Oh, Rachel, you left the front door open. Rachel, sweetie, you left the oven on. House could have burnt down. None of it ever happened. I knew that, but he was good at it. I started to doubt myself. She threw a look at him, bitter and cold. You made a mistake, though, Charlie. A big one. That last Christmas. Rachel, you left Annabelle in the bathtub alone. She could have drowned. Him holding you, you screaming. That's when I knew. I'd never forget about you. You were my world. I knew he was dangerous, that I had to leave him. I think Charlie could tell he'd lost, that I was going to leave. And he couldn't live with that, oh no. That's why he wanted to kill me. The final way to control me. Oh, come on! Dad strained against his chain, stamping his free foot, the container shuddering. Do you hear yourself, Rachel? You need help, honestly. These fantasies in your head, Belle doesn't believe any of this. I raised her smarter than that. He had raised her, and she was smart, but he was wrong. She believed Rachel, because Belle never left the front door open, or the trash unsealed. She never smashed that frickin' mug, and Dad left her in a Taco Bell parking lot for hours, not minutes. But she was smart enough to see something else too, all the things that Rachel left out. But you were leaving, weren't you? Belle said. You borrowed $3,000 from Julian Tripp 2 days before you went missing. You were going to use it to leave us, to run away. Rachel nodded, a sad smile dragging down the corners of her mouth. You're right, Belle. And you are smart, not because of him. Your dad had taken my bank cards off me by that point. For my own good, he said, because I maxed out a credit card and forgot I'd done it. It was a lie, but I didn't have access to my money, and I needed some if I was going to leave. I knew he was going to kill me. It wasn't a question of if. It was how long I had left. I didn't think I had enough time to see this credit card thing play out, especially when he then pretended my car was broken to isolate me more. I couldn't wait. Julian was my only friend. Work was the only place I was free from Charlie. I knew if I asked Julian after school, he'd give me the money. And he did just a couple of days later. $3,000. It was enough. Then Charlie fixed my car for me, and I knew I had to leave. That day, before it was too late. That exact day, Wednesday, February 13th. You're right, Belle. I was running away, but I was taking you with me. Belle breathed out the rest of the darkness, a shudder up her spine, but it wasn't a shiver. It was warm. There they were, the words she waited her whole life to hear, never knew it until this moment. Her mom didn't leave her behind, didn't choose to abandon her. Belle had always been a part of the plan. They were supposed to leave together. A tear broke free, clinging to her lashes. Rachel reached out, stroked her thumb along Belle's wrist, the warm shiver there too. I'd been planning for weeks, Belle. The entire thing. And now I had the money. It was time to go through with it. That's what happened in the mall. Why I disappeared twice that day. The first time was planned. It's true. What I told you, how we disappeared in the mall. The recycling bin behind that staff-only door. But it wasn't a coincidence. And it wasn't because I thought a stalker was watching us. I'd been visiting the mall for weeks, working it all out, tracking the cameras, finding a blind spot by that door. What time those bins were taking out the side door every day, where they took them, how long until the recycling was collected. If there were cameras there, I knew if we could get to that door, into one of those bins and be wheeled out, park the car a few streets over, no one would ever know. The staff-only door wasn't left unlocked. I swiped a key from someone 2 weeks before. I was ready, Belle, and it worked. We disappeared inside that mall, no trace of us leaving. You were so good inside that bin. Like you knew it was important that we weren't caught. I wanted people to think we'd disappear close to home, an impossible mystery to keep them occupied, so they'd never look for us anywhere else. So Charlie would have no idea where we went. Rachel paused for breath, eyes darkening with the story. I didn't know. It was the same day Charlie and Pat agreed to carry out their plan, too. Charlie was going to cut his hand around 2 o'clock to begin his alibi. That's when Pat was supposed to get me at home. Pat arrived just in time to see us leaving, heading for the mall, so he followed us to Berlin. Parked near our car, waited for us to get back. We were gone for hours, Belle hiding in that bin, waiting to be wheeled out. But Pat couldn't call Charlie to tell him something had gone wrong with the timing. Charlie's alibi had to be perfect, no link between them, no phone calls, so Pat waited. Followed us when we finally got back to the car. He thought we were heading home, but we were on our way to disappear for good, to find a new home. That's why I drove the back roads, so no cameras would pick up our plates. I didn't know Pat was behind us the whole way. We were on that quiet road, and he saw his opportunity, sped up to overtake us, braking in front. I had to swerve off the road to avoid hitting him. You were okay, Belle, always such a brave girl. I got out of the car to scream at this other driver, then I realized it was Pat. I asked what the heck he was doing. He could have killed us. He said he had to show me something. It was an emergency. I knew our plan was already ruined because Pat had seen us after we disappeared. I was distracted, thinking about what the heck to do, so I didn't see the cuffs in his hand. He opened his trunk, grabbed my wrist, shoved me inside, and closed the door. I screamed for him to let me out, kicking against the latch. But then there was this awful moment where I realized I'd left you with the door open. It was freezing out. I stopped screaming for me, and I started screaming for you, telling Pat I didn't care what he did to me, but he had to go back and close the door to make sure you were okay. He did. He checked that the heater was on, and he shut the door. He says you saw him, Belle. You called out to him. He gave you a juice box and left you there in the back seat. He wanted me to know he'd never hurt his granddaughter. Promised to take care of you while I couldn't. Then he brought me here. She opened her hands, gesturing at the makeshift prison cell. Belle took it all in again, the grooved foams along the ceilings, to the chain around Dad's ankle that disappeared outside. This small dark room, her mom's home for all that time. She tried to imagine it as Rachel saw it that first day. The edges growing sharper, shadows deeper, walls closing in. How had she survived all of that? Rachel seemed to read her mind, knowing the look in her eyes, as Belle now knew hers. Pat had about a week to put this all together after Charlie asked him to kill me, insulated it. She pointed at the foam, for the temperature. But I always thought it was so no one could hear me scream. No one ever did, she sniffed. I was cuffed around the ankle, holes for ventilation in the walls and ceiling. He put a generator up back, ran a cable through the hole in the wall there. So I had an electric heater in winter, a fan for summer. Gosh, summer was awful in here, so hot I could hardly move. Had a lamp I could use those months when the generator was on, so I wasn't living in darkness. Other times I had flashlights, enough batteries to keep one on for the entire time. He came twice a week with foods and water, any other supplies I asked for. Sat with me for a while with the door open. I always thought it was my chance to convince him to let me go. I think I got close, a couple of times, but he said it could only happen if Charlie ever came to him sorry for what they'd done. Otherwise, he said letting me go would be the same as letting me die. That Charlie would kill me himself. He would bring me a new book every couple of weeks. Rachel found Belle's eyes again, anchoring her to here and now, where she wasn't the one chained up. But you know that already. Found them all. I thought Pat would have taken them to a second-hand bookstore or give them to you. Didn't think he'd keep them all this time. He was never much of a reader. He used to read to me, Belle spoke around the lump in her throat. Those same books, after you'd read them. Rachel's eyes glittered again. I asked him to do that. Thought when you got old enough, maybe you'd see the marks and find the message. I'm sorry. Belle's eyes dropped to the floor, the guilt too heavy, dragging them down. It's not your fault, Belle. Rachel ran her hand up Belle's arm, down the other, until her eyes returned. You didn't know. I had to make it so faint, barely visible. Honestly, I'm not surprised no one ever found them. There was no other way. Pat had given me a pencil and a notebook for writing down supplies I needed. Then when he brought me the first book, I just wrote the message out. Big letters above chapter 1. But Pat flipped through it, found the message right away. He told me he'd burn the book, that he couldn't bring me any more if I tried that again, so I had to be smarter about it. I had a message that Pat couldn't find, because I knew he'd be checking, every time I gave him a book back. The memory thief. That was the second book he'd ever brought me. The first one I hid that message in. Why it's my favorite. I used to tell him it was a special book, never told him why. Even though it didn't work, it gave me something to live for. It gave me hope. Belle felt her eyes glaze too, glittering in the same way as Rachel's. Uncried tears for all those missing chances, years of being so close and never knowing. So you and me were running away. That's why the $3,000. Why we disappeared inside the mall, but then Grandpa intercepted us and took you. That's why you disappeared twice. One was planned, one wasn't. Rachel nodded. But what was the rest of your plan? Belle asked. The chain rattled, making her jump, and she almost forgot Dad was here, watching them. Where were we going after the mall? Belle had to know what life Rachel had planned for them, what the other way would have been. She'd lived one already, the tiny girl abandoned in the back seat, her life a mystery for others to gawk at, terrified of ever being left again, knowing it was inevitable. Belle needed to know the other way, the other life she could have had, what Dad and Grandpa took from her. A few weeks before that day, Rachel said, before Charlie cut me off of my money, I bought another car, this cheap thing, unregistered from a couple who just wanted cash. I parked it in Randolph, a street with just vacation homes, no one around to report it. We were going to swap cars, sink my old one in Lake Durand. From there, drive to Vermont, a town called Barton, where Robert Meyer lives, Belle said, filling in the gap, knowing where the rest of this was going because she'd lived a version of it the last 2 weeks. Jeff's friend, Bob, Rachel nodded. He used to drop him into the conversation when he could. Told me once that Bob sold fake identifications from the dark web, that it wasn't as expensive as I thought either. Jeff didn't know how much that stuck with me, how much I'd need it later. I got Bob's number and address from Jeff's phone in the final week. Wrote them down on a piece of paper, actually, because I was going to leave my phone in the car at the bottom of the lake. That paper is one of the only things I had in my pocket when Pat took me. That and Julian $3,000. Pat never found the money. I hid it, but that little piece of paper, I looked at it so many times. How close we'd have been to our new life. I memorized it all. The phone number, address, used to recite it sometimes, test myself. We were going to turn up at Bob's house that night, buy a full new identity for you and me. We had the money, and enough left to help us start over. From there we'd go to a private airfield near the border, convince someone flying a small aircraft to take us into Canada. We would have had our new passports for the flight plan, for the authorities, and no one would have really known it was us. From there, with our new names, we would make our way to this tiny town, called Dalhousie in New Brunswick. Only a few thousand people, not a lot of tourists. I looked it up on the computers at school, so there'd be no trace to me. Charlie would have never found us. No one would. That was going to be our new home. We could have disappeared there. We would have been happy there. A family. Belle blinked. They could have been happy there. A way that would have hurt less than the one she lived. Rachel had only forgotten one thing. She didn't just have the paper with Bob's number and the $3,000 when Grandpa kidnapped her. She must have had Belle's sock too. That little pink frilly one that she'd brought back when she came back from the dead. That's how you knew how to set everything up, Belle said. Make it look like Dad left the country, ran away with the new identity. Because it was meant to be our plan. It was meant to be our plan, Rachel repeated. Wait, Charlie spluttered, pulling against his chain, waving for Belle's attention. What do you mean it looks like I ran away? Belle set her jaw. You ran away, bought a new identity from Robert Meyer, ditched your old passport and phone in a private airfield in Vermont, and boarded a small aircraft to Canada with a new name. That's where the police think you are now. They aren't looking for you anymore. Belle watched the change in his face, the shift in his eyes, the panic he couldn't hide from her or Rachel. No one's looking for me? He said, voice desperate and raw, on the way to a shout. I looked for you, Belle said, but Dad must have not heard her. No one's looking for me? He was shouting now, a flush of angry red creeping up his neck, reaching his eyes. They think I ran away? Well, you did run away. Rachel stepped in front of Belle, her body a barricade between them. Liar! He screamed, tilting forward, swiping his arms. He couldn't reach her, chain straining behind him. Belle knows I would never— You left in the middle of the night, Charlie. Packed a bag and took your passport. I didn't even have to do those things for you. Ooh. Lying. And then B word. Rachel bared her teeth at him, a cruel smile. I thought it would make you squirm, me coming back from the dead. I hoped it would. Me, alive, telling the world that it was a stranger who took me. You couldn't even ask your dad about it, the only other person who knew the truth. Because he could no longer remember any of it. I bet you tried, didn't you? Wondering how much I knew, what I was going to do about it. But come on, you only lasted a week. Then you set off in the middle of the night, running away before the consequences could catch up to you. And it was a possibility. I wasn't sleeping at night in case he tried it. I set off a couple minutes before he did, caught him before he even got to Main Street. Told him it was time I told him the truth, what really happened to me, but I couldn't say it. I had to show him. Drove us here, led him to the truck. Pretended I only knew it was Pat who took me, working alone, that Charlie must not have known what his father was truly capable of. I saw the glint in his eye. I know how his mind works. He was figuring out a way to save himself, to pin the whole thing on his own dad without a second thought. I showed him where the generator plugged in, and while he wasn't looking, I slipped a cuff around his ankle, locked it. The look on his face when he knew that I knew. "Liar!" Charlie screeched, a line of spit trailing down his chin. "Belle knows I wouldn't leave. You're crazy, Rachel. Belle doesn't believe any of this." She didn't want to, her gut struggling against it, but she had to believe it. Dad had left her, and it wasn't just his word against Rachel's, one parent against the other, because Philip Alves had seen it too. "Belle," Dad said, staring through Rachel at her. "Look at me, kiddo. Don't listen to her. She's crazy. You have to trust me. What proof do you have that anything she's saying is true?" Belle's heart betrayed her, reacting to his voice, forcing itself against her ribs, trying to get to him. Her eyes flickered between him and Rachel. "The money, Dad. I knew about the $3,000 from Mr. Tripp. I found the books at Grandpa's house. The message she left. It's what led me here. And Philip Alves, he saw you leaving that night." "You don't think she could have set those things up?" His eyes softened. "She's manipulating you, kiddo. She's unwell. We need to get her help, you and me, okay? But you need to get me out of here now." "Charlie," Rachel began. "I'm not talking to you. I'm talking to my daughter." "Our daughter," Rachel said, something new in her eyes, hard and unmovable, staring him down. "Rachel has the key to the cuff, Belle. You need to get me out of here. I've been in this hellhole for 2 weeks. Belle, please help me." 2 weeks? Rachel forced out a laugh. "You've done 2 weeks, Charlie. You have no idea what I went through in here. Try 15 years. Dad opened his mouth to respond, but Belle spoke over him. 15 years. She touched Rachel's shoulder, turned her around. "Not the first time you've said that, even though it's been more than 16 years since that day. So, you didn't get out of here 3 weeks ago, when you reappeared?" "No." "When did you get out?" "Last summer," Rachel said. "August. When your grandpa had his first stroke." Belle stared at her, rewriting everything again. She hadn't stopped to think about it, what had happened to Rachel when Grandpa went to the hospital, when he lost his memory and Rachel along with it. "He normally came by twice a week with supplies," she said. "I wasn't worried when he missed one, thought he was just busy. Then he missed another. I started to ration food and water just in case. I didn't know he was in the hospital recovering from a stroke. After 2 weeks, I thought he was leaving me in here to die, that he couldn't go through with this anymore, but wasn't strong enough to kill me himself. The food was almost gone, the water too. The generator went off, no one to fill up the gas. No fan, no light. It was so hot. I was sweating so much, not enough water to save me from it. Thought I was dying alone here in the dark. Could feel all my bones. I was so dehydrated, so thin, that I didn't need the key anymore. The cuff slipped right off, over my foot. I was free for the first time, but I couldn't open the door, not from the inside." Her eyes were heavy, reliving it, her slow death right here. "I tried everything. Tried making tools out of the empty cans, the fan, something to force the door. Nothing worked. I was going to die in here. It was 21 days since I'd last seen Pat. Then I heard someone moving around outside. I was so weak, but I managed to hit a flashlight against the door, over and over, screaming for help." Rachel stared at the door, now open into the endless black night. It opened. I'd gotten so used to the darkness that I couldn't see anything for a few seconds. Then I heard his voice. Pat's, asking who I was. Rachel shook her head. I didn't understand, thought it was some kind of cruel joke. He asked me what I was doing here on his yard and who I was. Then I realized. He really didn't know who I was, didn't remember me, or that he was the one keeping me here. I figured it must have been a stroke, and there was significant damage to his brain, to his memories. It was my one chance and I wasn't going to lose it. I wasn't chained up anymore and the door was open. "I told your grandpa that I was a realtor, looking for a client interested in buying the yard, that I'd accidentally gotten trapped inside the truck and I'd been there all day. He told me he was sorry that happened. He actually apologized to me. I grabbed some things, the $3,000, and then I was free. Pat even held the door open for me as I climbed out, asked me to give him a call if there were any offers on the yard. He didn't remember me. I didn't even need to run. I couldn't have run if I wanted to. I just walked right out of here. First thing I did, drank from the river until I was sick. Found a car parked by the trailhead across the bridge. They had food and water, clothes and camping gear. I took it all. Stayed in the trees for a few days until I had my strength back. Belle nodded. The final pieces coming together now. All the signs and half-truths she'd uncovered, showing her the way. You escaped 8-9 months ago, she said. Why didn't you come home then? Rachel bit down her lip, a ghostly imprint of her front teeth when she let it go. I almost did. Almost went straight to the Gorham police. I was so desperate to see you again, but I stopped myself. It was like the message in the books. I messed up the first one, and I knew I needed to be smarter about this. I only had one chance to return, and I wanted to be prepared. I wanted to do it right. So I left town, left New Hampshire. Dyed my hair in a gas station toilet, caught a greyhound, then another. Ended up in a small town called Millinook in Maine. I thought it was far enough away, and people wouldn't recognize me with my hair, how thin I was. I had those $3,000 to get started. Rented a room, got work as a maid, cash in hand. And I planned, I researched, and I was careful about it. Public computers, not close to where I was staying. I found your old Instagram, Belle. I must have looked at that photo of you with that bracelet 1,000 times. More, kept me going. And then I needed it. Your grandpa never told me Charlie had been arrested back then. That a jury found him not guilty of my murder. That terrified me. That they had gotten it so wrong. Found him innocent of exactly what he had done, or what he tried to do. I knew I could never go to the police with the truth. Couldn't trust the criminal justice system to punish Charlie for what he'd done. How would it even work? There was no DNA evidence tying Charlie to any of the scenes because he hadn't been there. And the only witness I had couldn't remember any of it, what Charlie told him to do to me. No, the truth wasn't the way to get to Charlie, to get him away from you. So I came up with a different plan. A different story about where I'd been and what I'd do to those who'd done this to me. There was more. Something else I needed to find before I came back. It took a while. Turned out it was closer to home than I thought. Do you mean the clothes? Belle asked. The red top and black jeans from that boutique in New Conway? That was you, wasn't it, in January? A shift in Rachel's eyes, sharper. Not like she was angry, like she was proud somehow. Her well-laid plans and Belle unraveling them all. Both living a lie under the same roof. Like mother, like daughter. Yes, that was me. I'd moved closer, staying in a trailer near Lancaster. Borrowed a neighbor's car when they weren't home. That's where I'd originally bought that red top, those jeans. Thought I'd find something similar, remove the labels so police couldn't date them. Turn them into rags. Pat threw out the original clothes, burned them, actually. Bought me new clothes every year, for Christmas. Rachel approached the pile of clothes, taking her within the boundary of Dad's chain. He didn't move. Watched her closely as she kicked out at the old tops and sweaters, breaking apart the small mountain of fabric. When I was ready, when it was time, I cut my hair off, put on those ruined clothes. Fresh wound on my ankle I'd been working on, like I'd just escaped the cuff. I destroyed every last trace of me from the trailer. Left a tote bag I'd worn over my face on that road. Then I walked home. I know I messed up the story a couple of times, Belle. It was so hard, lying to your face. Like you were being punished too. But I didn't think you'd accept the truth if I just told you. You weren't ready. These people raised you. You loved them. I thought I had to do it all on my own. The only one who'd ever know. Well, me and your dad, because he had to go, of course. But I'm so glad you're here with me now, that I'm not alone anymore. Rachel breathed out, and so did Belle. There it was, the whole truth. Belle had been right about everything, and wrong about more. Rachel had lied, had planned both her disappearance and her reappearance, just not in the way Belle could have ever guessed. And what's your plan now, huh, Rachel? Charlie spat in her direction. This. She sharpened her chin, opened her arms. There you go through the exact same thing you did to me, Charlie. 15 years, 5 months, 25 days. You've done 13 days. Bit of a ways to go. You're freaking crazy. Think of it like I'm saving you, Charlie. The only other option was to kill you. Are you listening to this, Belle? He forgot to take the edge out of his voice, the fire out of his eyes. She's freaking crazy. Talking about killing me? You killed me first, honey, Rachel hissed. Belle, stop. Belle raised her hands, coming to stand between her parents, stopping in the middle. Stop it. Rachel held her hands up too, a flash of fear in her eyes. Careful, Belle, don't get too close to him. There was fear in Charlie's eyes too, but it didn't take the same shape as her mom's. Rachel is the key, he said. We can sort everything out, kiddo, okay? Get everyone the help they need. But you have to get the key from her. You need to set me free. Belle glanced back at Rachel, hooking onto her eyes, so much like her own. She'd always hated that. Always wished she'd been born with the Price eyes. Belle, get the key. Dad's voice in one, Mom's in the other. It's okay, Belle, Rachel said gently, one hand disappearing behind to her pocket. She brought it back, opened it. A small silver key on her outstretched palm. It's right here. Charlie strained against his chain, swiping towards Rachel, the disturbed air fluttering her hair. I can't reach, he screamed. Grab the key, Belle, now! She stared down at it, against Rachel's pale skin. Her fingers twitched. Dad's heavy breath in time with her own. You've told me everything, right? She asked, still looking at the key. No more lies? A twitch by Rachel's mouth, the truth in her eyes. No, she said. There's something else. There's more I need to tell you, but not here. Like this. I promise to tell you everything. I will never lie to you again. Belle, grab the key! Dad screeched. He put a heavy hand on her shoulder, thumb pressing against her bare neck. He gave her a gentle push, one step towards Rachel out of the middle. Get the key, kiddo, he whispered, letting her go. What do you mean there's more? Belle stared at Rachel. What haven't you told me? She's trying to manipulate you. Stop listening. Just take the key. I'll tell you everything. Not here. He can't know. Shut the frick up, Rachel. Belle, get the key. His fingers against her back, another nudge, pushing her farther out the middle towards Rachel. You can take it if you want, Rachel said, a tear falling, catching at the crack of her lips. I won't try to stop you. It's your choice. You haven't had a lot of choices in your life, Belle. Now you do. What a heck of a choice to finally give her. Sorry, that was me. That was an aside. Belle looked over her shoulder at Dad, then back to Mom. Take it, Belle. Come on. It's okay, sweetie, Rachel said. I'll understand. But Dad wouldn't. Belle took a step forward. Yes, that's it, kiddo. His voice hovered behind her, urging her on, her heart throwing itself against the bars of her rib cage, pulling both ways and neither. It's okay. Rachel watched Belle take another step towards her. She knows it's okay. Stop talking to her, Rachel. Dad's voice seemed farther away now. Belle's eyes watered, holding the key in place, there on Rachel's hand. Take the key or don't. Choose Charlie or Rachel, Mom or Dad. Her lies or his. Eyes on the key. One way or the other, because Belle couldn't have both. One couldn't exist if the other did. She'd made this choice already, head and heart and gut. Chose the man who'd raised her, because they were a team, always had been. Both had lied to her, Mom and Dad, standing here in no man's land between them. Lost, the after ring in her ears, and an ending that was hers to choose. So choose. Belle took another step, feet unsteady. And what would it come down to in the end? The one she knew more? The one she'd loved longer, loved harder? The one who came back from the dead for her? One all her life? One for just 3 weeks? Second thoughts pitted themselves against each other, streaming behind her eyes. But maybe only one truth really mattered. When he took it all away, threw out those memories or the space where they should have been. Who had chosen to leave her behind and who hadn't? Belle tore her gaze from the key, circling Rachel's eyes, the color and shape of her own, back to the key. Rachel nodded. You have to get me out of here, kiddo, please. Blurred edges, eyes crossing, splicing the key into two. She blinked until her vision righted, because there was only one. Only one she could choose. Mom or Dad? His side or hers? One or the other? Belle chose, and she chose right this time. Head and heart and gut. She closed the gap between her and Rachel, eyes fixed on the key, watering because she couldn't blink. Blink and everything might disappear. Belle reached out, fingers gliding through the air, a shiver as she touched the skin of Rachel's palm, warm, not cold. She closed Rachel's hand around the key into a fist. Skin to skin, bone to bone, held it there tight. Eyes on her mom's. She chose her. Belle! Dad screamed. He couldn't see. Belle let go, though. Something of her stayed behind, there in Rachel's closed hand. She stood beside her mom. No, Dad, she said darkly, meeting her eye. What are you talking about? He blinked because he didn't understand. She knew he wouldn't. Don't be stupid. Get the key. I said no. And she didn't say sorry. What the frick are you doing? He screeched, backing away, chain clattering. You can't be serious. You have to let me go. She's brainwashed you. I've made my choice, Charlie. Belle's heart didn't waver, not at the pleading in his voice. She didn't know this man, not really, and her heart didn't either. Family first, and he wasn't her family anymore. He never was. Belle, stop. You must be crazy. Yeah, I must be, she said, shutting him out. Doing that thing she did. The thing she'd gotten so good at because she had to survive. She pushed him away. Charlie sucked at the stale air. No, 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 he said to himself, a crescendo building in his chest. No, he barked. No, he screamed, string of spit holding his teeth together, an animal look in his eye. You can't leave me in here. You can't. Why not? Belle said. He'd left her. He decided to kill Rachel. He'd chosen for Belle, that tiny babbling girl, picked the way that hurt less for him but ruined her. The knot in her gut she hadn't felt so much since he'd been gone. I'm begging you, he screamed, hands in front of his chest. You can't leave me in here. Belle glanced at her mom. A blink, a hidden message inside it. Yes, they could leave him in here. A new family secret. Dark only because of the ones that came before. The one that bound the two of them together. Mother and daughter. Mom and Belle. A team. No! A roar as he bounded toward them, chain pulling taut with a crash of metal. Charlie's hands scrabbled the air, fingers closing around Belle's sleeve, pulling her towards him in those desperate, hungry eyes. Belle dug her nails into his flesh, scratching deep. Rachel stamped on his foot, pulling Belle out of his grip. She bared his teeth, eyes glittering the same way they had when another man tried to hurt her daughter. Do not touch her! She stood in front of Belle. I can make it even worse for you. Don't leave me here, he howled, empty swipes at the air, slipping, crashing to his knees. I'll kill you, Rachel. I should have frickin' killed you. Mom reached back, took Belle's hand, gave it a squeeze. It was time to go. I'll kill you! Belle turned towards the open doorway, a black frame, the empty night beyond waiting for them. But it wasn't empty. A white ball of light floating up the tires, a dark shape looming behind it. A new voice and a pair of eyes glowing in the night. What the frick is going on here? Chapter 45. Uncle Jeff came into the light, the container floor shifting with his weight, tipping away from Belle and Rachel. His mouth dropped open when he spotted Charlie there on his knees. Charlie? He hurried over to his little brother. What are you doing here? You're supposed to be in Canada? What the frick is going on here? He said again, eyes catching on the chain attached to Charlie's ankle, gaze shifting around the makeshift room. Oh my God, am I glad to see you? Charlie cried, a hand snaking over to his brother's shoulder, eyes hooking onto him. You have to help me, Jeff. Rachel locked me in here. It's been 2 weeks. She's crazy. Filled Belle's head full of lies. They want to leave me here. You have to help me. Why would Rachel? Jeff began, eyeballing Belle and Rachel standing together out of Charlie's reach. Rachel has the key to the cuff, Charlie said, a growl in his throat, blinking out a tear. You need to get it, Jeff. Get the key and unlock me. Jeff straightened up, standing over his brother. I don't understand. You don't need to understand. Just get the key. Charlie pushed up to his feet, chain rattling. He stood shoulder to shoulder with his brother, finger gripping on again. Rachel, Jeff said, looking over at her, his eyes crossing sides. Is that true? Why would you stop asking her questions? Charlie barked, guiding his brother forward, his head floating over his shoulder, voice in his ear. Just get the key. It's in her hand. Jeff took a step forward into the middle. Look, I don't know what's happened here, but I'm sure we can work it out. We're a family, aren't we? Jeff, don't, Rachel said, an edge to her voice, a warning. I'm sorry, Rachel. Jeff blinked at her, but I'm going to need that key. Rachel stepped back, Belle with her, foot nudging into the cascade of clothes. How did you find us here? Belle asked him, stalling for time. Jeff's eyes fell on her instead, lines easing, like he thought they were safe there. You and Rachel never came back to dinner, so Sherry stayed behind to clear up, and me and Carter followed Jordan back to Grandpa's house to see where everyone had gone. We saw the mess, books all over the floor. We thought someone had broken in. Grandpa was upset, so Jordan went to settle him into bed, and me and Carter started tidying. I saw the note on the coffee table. Help, my name is Rachel Price. He recited, a quick look at her. It mentioned the red truck here, so I drove right over. Left Carter to clean up the mess. What the frick is going on? Belle shuffled back, a lump beneath her heel. She lifted her shoe. A flash of color against the blacks and grays Rachel had worn during her imprisonment here. Pink. A tiny pink sock, frilly at the edge. The other sock. Her other sock. The one in her mom's nightstand, and the one here. A complete pair. Rachel must have found both when Grandpa grabbed her, managed to take one with her when he let her go. Belle picked it up, just as soft, just as small. How was it possible she was ever this small? What did the rest of the note say? Rachel stared Jeff down. What did it say, Jeff? Help, my name is Rachel Price. Jeff coughed into his fist. Say it, Rachel said, voice gentle, eyes anything but. I am being kept by Patrick Price, Jeff said shakily, losing his way, feet dragging to a stop. In a red truck on Price logging yard. Rachel smiled. It twisted at the edges, turning cruel. But you already knew that, didn't you? The color drained from Jeff's face, lip tucked behind his teeth. What? Belle looked up. Jeff shook his head. No, I didn't. I don't. But you do, don't you? You know. Rachel pushed back, taking a step towards him now. I've seen the way you look at us, you know? Does Sherry know too? How long have you known, Jeff? From the very start? How could you do that to me? No! Jeff waved his hands, voice tight and jittery. I never knew. I swear to you, Rachel. It was only when you came back, only when I saw the similarities. But you said nothing, Rachel growled. What are you talking about? Belle asked them both. It doesn't matter, Charlie shouted. Jeff, the key! I'm not giving you this key, Jeff. Rachel's voice was dark and deep, chin sharpened to a point. You've taken enough from me. Please. Jeff begged her, blinking away tears. You owe me. You know you do. What are you going to do? Jeff asked, tears winning, breaking down his face. Please don't take her away from us. You took her away from me, Rachel cried. Who are you talking about? Belle's eyes darted between them, her mom and her uncle dancing around another secret, another landmine. And there was only one name that fit there in that space, ready to explode. Carter? Rachel closed her eyes. Jeff hid his face in her hands. Belle looked down at the tiny pink sock, dangling between her fingers. A baby sock. Here. But it didn't belong to Belle. It never had. Belle emptied out, an outward breath that didn't end until it was all gone, a rasp at the back of her throat. She staggered, hitting the wall of the container, clutching the sock against her empty chest. Rachel reached for her. Belle, I'm sorry. I wanted to tell her first. Belle tried to speak, but she couldn't speak because she couldn't breathe, and she couldn't see for all the smoke. What are you talking about? Charlie barked. Jeff? Her mom touched her hand and her breath came back, tearing down her throat, filling her, a different shape again, a different person. A sister. She cried, shrinking against the wall, looking up at her mom. You were pregnant when you disappeared. You had a baby in here. Belle handed her the tiny pink sock. Carter's your baby. Rachel pressed her eyes together, twin tears from each eye, racing down her face. Yes, she said quietly. Belle wiped her face on her sleeve. How? I was 4.5 months pregnant when Pat locked me in here. I hadn't told anyone, especially not him. She didn't need to say Charlie's name. It was another reason we had to get away from him, start a new life, before he killed me. I wasn't showing much, but I started wearing baggy clothes just in case. Julian even thought I was losing weight. She sniffed. I didn't want that baby to be born into this family. We had to get to our new home, our family of 3, but then I wasn't here. She glanced behind her, checking Jeff hadn't moved. Hands on his face, stretching his eyes down, showing the red exposed parts of the socket. I told you Grandpa was pregnant that first day. Didn't think he believed me. Not until several weeks in when I started to show. He still wouldn't let me go. Asked me to write down the supplies I'd need. Said he'd be here for the birth, that we could do it together. We had everything ready. Diapers, clothes. She stroked her thumb over the tiny pink sock. He wasn't here when I went into labor. I delivered her myself. Thought I was going to die, but there she was, screaming up at me. Perfect. Mine. The only world she knew was the one inside this container, but she had me and I had her. Not alone anymore. We were doing okay. I didn't let Pat hold her. Wouldn't let him near. Her breath shuddered. I only had her for 2 weeks. Hadn't even named her yet. Pat came in with some scales, said we needed to weigh her, check she was healthy. I only let him close for 1 second, and he took her, when I couldn't reach her. She glanced at the chain. I screamed, but he wouldn't give her back. Said he couldn't let his granddaughter grow up in a place like this. It wasn't fair. That she would go to a good home. She'd be taken care of, he promised. He took her, closed the door, and I never saw my baby again. Belle took her mom's hands, hot and sticky, the sock between them. I'm sorry. Help. My name is Rachel Price. We are being kept by Patrick Price, in a red truck on Price logging yard. Because Rachel wasn't always alone, just for 2 weeks. For one message in one book, her and her baby. Carter was Rachel's daughter, but she was someone else too. Not Belle's cousin, but her little sister. My baby. Belle and Carter, Carter and Belle. And somehow it was the most shocking thing, this final truth, and also not at all, not even a little. Her sister. I asked about her every time Pat dropped off food. You too, Rachel sniffed. My girls. Pat wouldn't tell me where my baby went, just that she was with a good family. I assumed he meant she'd gone with foster care, that she'd been adopted. That's what I was looking for when I got out last summer. Spent months trying to find records. A baby who'd been born in New Hampshire on the 1st of July, 2008. I had to find my other daughter before I came home to you. I didn't even think. She glanced at Jeff, only covering his mouth now. And then I saw a photo of Carter on Sherry's Facebook, dancing, smiling. And I knew right away that she had to be my baby girl. The ages matched, and her face. I checked. I scrolled through Sherry's albums to photos of Carter as a baby, just a few weeks old. It was her, my girl, still wearing the clothes Pat had bought for me. That's when I started to plan my reappearance, to come home, for both of you. And what I would do to the Price family, this family, who took everything from me. I didn't know, Jeff cried, mouth uncovered now. You have to believe me, Rachel. We didn't know she was yours. Dad told me he knew someone who worked at a women's shelter, that there was a woman 6 months pregnant who didn't want the baby, but couldn't go to an adoption agency because she was undocumented, would get deported. So Dad thought of us. We'd been trying to have a baby for more than 10 years. Dad and his friend thought this would be the best thing for everyone. His friend. Dad told us the baby was due in July, that the parents looked enough like us that no one would have to tell. Same skin color, similar hair. Sherry would have to pretend to be pregnant so no one would ask questions, as none of this was legal. We were desperate, Rachel. Sherry wanted a baby so much. We said yes. Sherry started wearing maternity clothes and we bought bumps online, changed the size every couple of weeks. Dad told us when the baby was born that it was a girl, that she was healthy. He said the mother needed a couple of weeks with her for everything to settle, and then she would be ours. We laid low, hardly left the house. Charlie was in jail awaiting trial. Belle was living with us, but she was too young to understand. Then Dad brought the baby around in the middle of that night, and we fell in love instantly. Belle too. Another dark family secret she'd lived through, that she'd been too small to hold on to remember. A birth that never happened, and a baby that appeared from nowhere. We told everyone she'd been born July 10th. A home birth, because Sherry didn't like hospitals or needles. We registered her, named her. Promised to give this baby the best life we could. We were careful. Sherry never let a doctor near her with a needle, no blood test, nothing that could risk exposing she wasn't ours. If I'm honest, I almost started to forget that Sherry hadn't given birth to her that night in July. She felt so much like part of the family, looked it too. I thought it was just wishful thinking. He coughed into his hand. Then you came back, Rachel, and it was the way you looked at her, the way you were with her, the similarities. Carter looks like a Price, but she also looks like you. Not in the obvious ways, but it's there, in her smile. The way you're both always fiddling, always moving somehow. I had this bad feeling when I saw you two together. I tried telling Sherry. She told me I was being ridiculous, that it wasn't possible. I think I knew after that dinner party for the documentary. I was almost sure. Belle straightened up, her back against the wall of the container, the foam insulation pressing in like fingers. That's what you were asking Grandpa that night. She narrowed her eyes at her uncle. What the microphone caught you saying. You weren't asking about Rachel, you were asking about Carter. Where was she? Where did they find her? Because Grandpa knew where Carter came from, who her mother really was, but he couldn't remember. He can't remember any of this. I asked you about that conversation, and you lied to my face. Her voice found its strength, carrying her forward. I'm sorry, Belle. I was protecting my daughter, except she's not your daughter. She's your niece, too. My sister. Charlie shifted, the chain dancing behind him. Is she mine, Rachel? Of course she's yours, Rachel spat. Except she'll never be yours. I'm sorry, Charlie. Jeff faced his brother. I didn't know she was your daughter. Dad lied to all of us. Don't apologize to him, Rachel hissed, the fire back in his eyes. How the ghosts were now gone. If you think your dad is a monster, Jeff, take a good hard look at your brother. All of this is because of him. Pat only kept me in here because Charlie asked him to kill me. Pat convinced him he was saving me from him. Charlie wanted me dead, which means Carter would have died too. That's your family, Jeff. Jeff did what Rachel said, turned around, took a good hard look at his brother. So did Belle. And Charlie Price was a different shape now, not the man she ever knew. He was no family of hers. She had a mom and a sister, and that was all she ever needed. Please, Charlie whispered, underlit by the flashlight, upward shadows he cast on himself, silver pooling in his eyes. Help me, Jeff. Jeff coughed into his hand, turned back, blinked. I have to let him go, Rachel. Please give me the key. Jeff had chosen, and he'd chosen wrong. Uncle Jeff, Belle began. No, Jeff, Rachel said darkly, eyes hardening, standing her ground. I'm choosing to believe you, that you didn't know, that you thought you were giving an unwanted baby a home, that you're a good person. You don't always have to listen to him. You can choose. Please help me, Charlie choked. I have to let him go, Charlie cried, eyes flickering, torn in two. I have to. He's my brother. My family. He chose wrong again. No! Belle held out her arm. Jeff pushed it away. No, Jeff. Rachel backed up until she was against the wall. You can choose. Give me the key, Rachel. He reached out towards her. No chain to keep him back. No, she whispered, a shift behind her eyes, but it wasn't fear. Rachel grabbed forward to meet him, elbow to his chest. Before Jeff could grab her arm, she pulled it back and swung, launching the key out the doorway into the dark night. It disappeared, and Belle held her breath, heard the tiny clink as it landed out there somewhere in the metal maze. No! Charlie howled, kicking out at the boxes of food, the flashlight falling over, a silver streak along the floor, throwing them all into shadow. UB! Find it, Jeff! Find it! Jeff stared out into the night, mouth open and shut, chewing the air. I'll never find it. It's pitch black out there, junk everywhere. Jeff! I tried, Charlie, he sniffed. Silence. Just the chorus of their breaths and a ringing in Belle's ears. Forget the key. Charlie straightened up, hand on his brother's shoulder, reeling him back in. Go find a handsaw. There must be hundreds of saws out there. Find something to get me out of this chain, Jeff. Now! He shouted that last word, piercing the night, bringing Jeff back to life. Rachel, too, arms locking at her side. Jeff looked at Charlie, eye to eye, brother to brother. He picked up the flashlight, their eyes distorted, eyes glowing white. Jeff turned, pointed it out of the open doorway. Okay, he said, walking through. Rachel whipped around, found Belle's eyes in the dark. Then she found her hand, held it tight. Belle, run! And that is chapter 45. And that is, unfortunately, where we are going to have to leave it. Okay, some part of me is sad that Jeff chose his brother. But, like, I understand. Jeff has known this man his entire life. You know what I mean? And he has not seen Charlie for who he is. So I don't blame him. Like, Belle was able to break from her dad's grasp only because she had logic and reason. You know, she was able to prove her way that her dad is actually not who she thought he was. Jeff is in a much deeper of a pit to fight against his brother. So I am sad at Jeff. I'm not gonna lie, I really thought Rachel was going to push Jeff in and leave them both in there. But at the same time, I know she probably wouldn't have done that because he was the person taking care of her daughter for so long. So she probably doesn't have the heart to do that to Jeff if he truly didn't know. So I'm kind of upset. I guess the girlies have got to run because, geez, what is going to happen to them once Charlie is free is, I think, the biggest question. This is crazy. I'm curious if Rachel has actually told Carter, and that's what Carter was going to tell Belle, and she wanted to apologize to Belle about what she thought about her mom. I don't know. This is crazy. But yeah, unfortunately, that is going to have to be where we end it. There are 5 chapters left, so please join us next time for the last 5 chapters of this book. But thank you guys for joining me today. We are almost done. This has been a whirlwind. My head is spinning. I can't even imagine like how Belle would be feeling in this situation. I think I would have just passed out, dude. Nothing in her life is the same. The only constant she might have is Carter. She thought her dad was always going to be there for her, but no, it's actually going to be Carter. I mean, as long as they run away with Carter, which I'm assuming is what they're going to do right now. I don't know. But yeah, I can't wait to see what happens next.